Okay, we were talking about the gentleman who accidentally on the ponds shot his son. His son passed away, and they asked me to preach his funeral. Well, I didn't say, the Lord took your son. It was the Lord's will. It didn't violate the will, but the Lord didn't do that. And so we need to be careful about this. And, people have a tendency to say, why in the world did this happen anyway? So we don't need to give them some type of excuse or something like that to have a tendency to blame the Lord. But anyway, we noticed these things in preparation, background of our studying the book of Job. But the point is that sometimes we don't realize why these things are coming upon us. But we need to know that the Lord cares. And that's what I pointed out to this couple. I said, the Lord cares what happens to us. And He loves us. And if we obey Him, then He's with us. All right. Let's get back now to Job. We finished, or nearly finished, in chapter 1. The Bible says that when Job was destroyed, he arose, rent his robe, shaved his head, fell upon the ground and worshipped. Said, the Lord gave and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of Jehovah, the Lord. In all this, Job sinned not, and charged God to his nation. Chapter 2. This is round 2, beginning of round 2, between God and Satan. Again, it came to pass on the day when the Son of God came to present himself before Jehovah. Satan came also among them to present himself before Jehovah. Satan is subject to God too. He's limited and pointed out. And Jehovah said unto Satan, from whence comest thou? Well, God knew, but he wanted Satan to answer. Down on earth, walking up and down to and fro in it. Hast thou considered my servant Job? Well, there's none like him in all the earth. Notice that he's still able to say that, even after the first round. Perfect, upright man, one that feareth God, turneth away from evil. And he still holdeth fast his integrity, although thou, Satan, moved me to destroy him, though he did not deserve it, without cause. Satan answered Jehovah and said, yea, skin for skin, all that a man hath, with a year for his life. Now, God had won round 1. Job did not curse God, like Satan said. Well, old Satan just passed it off. He acted like God hadn't even won round 1, and it hadn't even been a temptation to Job. Hadn't even, but he says, skin for skin. All that a man had with the exchange for his life. In other words, I think what he's saying is, a person will even exchange the skin of his own children to save his own life. Now that's not true. Most of us would give ourselves like that, save the lives of our children. And so, but old Satan says, hey, Job, that hadn't even been a test for Job yet. Well, I reckon it had been. Anyway, he wants to act like God didn't win that round. But you touch his life, his skin, his hide, and push it to the face. Well, God said, all right, you go out and inflict great pain, funny, whatever you want to do to him, but don't you kill him. Don't you kill him. So with this understanding, Satan went out from the presence of Jehovah. And you know what he did? He smote Job with sore boils from the top of his head to the sole of his foot. From scalp lock to bone. Job had rising on top of rising to the side, rising. And so, have you ever had a rise? If you ever have an opportunity to have a rise or not to have a rise, choose not to have one. I remember having one on the top of my head here when I was just a lad, 3 or 4 years old. I remember that's one of the hardest thing I remember. And I remember that thing hurt like it. And I kept saying, Dad, do something with that, do something. He said, man, things got to come to a head, And it's got before we get that fester out there. Well, let me tell you something, boy, it hurts. Those rises hurt. And that's been a long time ago, but I remember that one. fear, pain, and physical maladies that Satan could think of. He was just short of death, really. And no doubt all of the problems of Satan. What kind of condition did he have? He became nothing but skin and bones. We'll see that as we go through if we have time. He was running with constant fever. He had constant pain in his bones. He had maggots working in his flesh. Maggots now. I just don't enjoy seeing maggots. But Job saw them. Brother, they were working, and these risers and all, the pus would come, and all this, and some of them would scab over, and then they'd break out again. See? And there it was, out in the trash pile now, sitting in a trash pile in a state of mourning, and he picks up pieces of pottery. He has ashes all over himself, dirt and so forth, and he picks up pieces of pottery, potsherds, ostraca, and he scrapes the maggots and balls and everything like this, trying to get a little bit of relief. And that was here to the bottom of his feet. I don't know anyone who has ever had this type of pain, and so constant, and so extended, and this type of thing. Well, his wife said to him, "Dost thou still hold fast thine integrity? Renounce God and die." I think what she's saying is, are you still maintaining your faithfulness to God even though He has treated you like this? Curse God and commit suicide. Now, Satan is able to speak through his wife. His wife is not as strong as Job. Well, let me tell you something. Sometimes we fail to realize what his wife has been through. When Job lost all of his possessions, you know what? She lost all hers. When Job lost 10 children, killed by the whirlwind, she lost 10 children. And in addition to that, not only did she lose all her possessions, but here is her beloved husband, the closest person on earth to her, who is suffering grievously. Sometimes when I've had this or that happen to me, my wife has said to me, "I wish that could have happened to me instead." I have an idea she would have rather have gone through this and have her back. She didn't have the strength to go. And Satan is able to speak through her and use her. And the closest and dearest person on earth, Job, said, "Job, why in the world do you keep being faithful to God? Curse God and take your own life." You see, Satan couldn't kill Job. But if he talked his wife and he talked Job into committing suicide, he accomplished the same. But here's Job's reaction. He says, "Thou speakest one of the foolish. You're a fool the way you're talking. What, shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive also evil?" We didn't have any problem when God was good to us, when we received good from Him, and so should we also receive evil from Him? In all this is not Job sin with his lips. That's amazing. I wish we had more time to talk about it. Well, months went by, and the word came to Eliphaz, Bildad, and so forth, three of his friends. And so they said, "Hey, we're going to meet at such and such a place, and we're going to go comfort our friends." And I think they did well. I think they intended to do what they could to help Brother Job. And so they met together, and they journeyed to see Job. And when they got yet afar off and saw Job out there in the trash pile or somebody, they didn't even recognize him. He was so disfigured, so emaciated, or whatever the word is, and so forth. They did not even recognize him. And they were so struck with his suffering and with his grief until they did what? They read each one his own. And they sat that down in the trash pile. And they took ashes and threw them up as a sign of mourning, and it fell upon them. And they sat there 7 days and 7 nights a week. And they didn't speak a word to Job. I don't know whether they just murmured to themselves. They didn't say anything to Job. Maybe this was what you did in the morning. You went 7 days not saying anything. But then Job broke the silence after 7 days. The Bible says that he cursed the day he was born. That is, he wished evil to befall him. He didn't use profanity. There's a difference between profanity and cursing. Cursing is to wish evil upon something or someone. Profanity is to take God's name in vain and is to use profane speech. Job wished evil upon the day he was born. He said, let that night perish wherein I was born. When they said a man-child had been conceived. Let that day be ripped out of the calendar. Let not the eyelids of the morning open up upon that day. He's speaking of the morning as the dawning of the day, as being when a fellow is waking up in the morning, a person, and his eyelids barely open, and he begins to see the light and everything. Don't let that day see any light. Let that day be ripped out of the 360 or 365 days of the year, whatever they have. Why? Because God will see that day and it'll just remind him of me and let more pain upon me. Then he said, why didn't I give up the ghost when I was born? Why didn't I give it up? Notice that in verse 11. Why died I not from born? Why did I not give up the ghost when my mother bare me? You know, some people say that you get your spirit when you're born. Job knew better than that. Job knew that you get your spirit when you're conceived. And you have it when you're born. You've had it 9 months. Why didn't I give it up when I was born? Why did the knees receive me? Back there, when the husband, the father, would, when a child would be born, if that husband, father received that child on his knees after it was born, he owned it for his own. Otherwise, it was thrown out and left to die. Why did the knees receive me? Why did my mother think so well of me as to feed me? If they hadn't, she hadn't, then I would have laid down and been quiet. That she's talking about his body. His body is racked with pain now. Then I should have slept had I been at rest in the grave, my body. See, it wouldn't be racked with pain now. With kings and council of the earth who built up waste places, princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. As an earned time of their birth, I had not been as infants and never saw light. There, the wicked trees cease from troubling, and the weary are at rest. Why did I have to be born? Why in the world couldn't I have died at birth? There in the grave, prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of their taskmaster. You know, Carl Sandburg has a poem called Union Pacific. And he talks about Huntington and Blithry. Huntington is the president of the railroad. Blithry is one who's driving spikes on the railroad. Huntington says, Blithry, do this. Yes, sir. But the last couplet is Huntington, Blithry. Live in houses 6 feet long. Huntington is not saying, now, you do this. Blithry is not saying, yes, sir. And what happened in life happened in the grave, he says, to my body. Oh, I wish I could have died. Could never have been. But since I have been born, then I want to die now. Why is life given to him that is in misery? Why do I keep seeing the light of day? Why do I keep living? And life under the bitter soul who long for death more than people who search for hidden treasures. Have you ever seen people who want to die? I have. I've had people say, Brother Cage, why must I live on? And why must I continue to undergo this pain, suffering, and problems? Edward Robinson wrote a poem, Ebb and Flood. Ebb and Flood. Ebb and flood. Ebb and flood. Meanwhile, you know, things come and go so forth. Meanwhile, here's old ebb and flood up on a hill beside Mississippi, where he lived, was born and all this, and his friend, but he was an old man. And he said, Evan, have a drink. And he takes another 2 moons right there watching. 2 moons. Why is he drinking himself like that in drunkenness, stupor, under the influence of ignorance? Because all his friends and his wife and he's outlived his children. Sadly, didn't have any friends. Well, he certainly did. The Lord did. Who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid? He's living in darkness, can't see the end of the tunnel. Whom God hath hedged in. For Satan criticized God for having hedged Job in and given him everything. Here, Job criticizing God for having hedged him in and not let him die. For my sighing cometh more regularly than my eating, and my groaning poured out like water. You ever hear this at night? That faucet dripping. What do you do? You go in there and tighten that thing up and put a cloth under it or something. Man, he said, my groaning poured out like water. They're regular as a drip. Thing I fear cometh upon me, and that which I'm afraid of cometh unto me. I am not at ease, neither am I quiet, but trouble cometh. It's going to keep on coming. It's going to get worse before it gets better. You ever heard that? Chapter 4 is the beginning of the rounds of speeches. That was Job's soliloquy. Chapter 4 begins the rounds of speeches. The first round, first speakers, Eliphaz speaks. Now, let's notice old Eliphaz. I call him the exegete. If one essay commune with thee, remember now, it's been 7 days. Job has broken silence. Eliphaz says, hey, boy, I'm going to have to deal with this. If one desires to speak with you, Job, will you get angry? Be grieved? Who can hold himself from speaking? And I've got to speak anyway, even though it makes you mad. Behold, thou hast instructed me. Thou hast strengthened the weak hands, those that were about to give up. Man, you've reached out to help them. You've spoken to them and encouraged them, and your words have been hope in him. And thou hast made firm the feeble knees. You've reached down and grabbed them by the hand and lifted them up. Oh, that's great. But now it's happened to you. Now the problems come upon you, and you faint. Now, how do you explain that, Job? You know, it's kind of like Romans 2 teaches, thou teachest another, teachest not that, thou not thyself. The physician doesn't take his own medicine. It touches thee, and thou art troubled. I thought the fear of God was thy confidence. I thought you reverenced God. I thought you had confidence and trust in God, and the integrity of thy ways was thy hope. But I don't see any evidence of that. And so I'll tell you what you trouble is. If you want to know, I'll tell you what you trouble. You trouble that you are a right great sinner. The philosophy of the friends is this. And if you don't believe that they're right, just ask them. All suffering is punishment. There's never been a person suffering from this except he was a sinner and he deserved it and brought it upon himself. Number 2, Job is suffering. Therefore, Job is because they say that it's right, and they don't have to prove it. It's right because the very fact that they say it makes it right. Notice verse 7. That's what he says. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished, being innocent. You know one person who ever perished, who was innocent. Every person who's ever suffered brought that upon themselves. Well, that's just not true. All Job would have had to have done, and he knew about Abel. He knew about Adam, chapter 31. All Job would have had to have done was to think back to Abel, who was killed. Cain killed Abel. Why? Because he was righteous, not because he was guilty of sin. But anyway, over that families, or where were the upright cut off? According as I have seen, he appeals to observation. They that plow iniquity and trouble reap the same. Well, that's true. If you plow iniquity and trouble, you're going to suffer. If you sin, you are going to suffer. But see, he reasons back. He says, if you suffer, say, well, that is proof positive that you have sinned. Now, that doesn't follow necessarily. You got me? You sow sin, you're going to reap iniquity. Galatians 6, 7, and 8. As a man soweth, that shall he also reap. But my friend, just because a person suffers doesn't mean that he was a right sinner. But see, that's their philosophy. Job, you are suffering because you are wicked. You're a wicked sinner. According as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish. You know who's killing you, Job? God. Well, was that right? By the flash of their anger they are consumed, roaring lion, growing fierce lion, and so forth. In other words, nothing happens unless there's a cause for it. You're suffering, there's a cause. And then, my friends, he appeals to experience he had. You know, sometimes people say, well, I heard this, God told me that, an angel told me that, and so forth, several weeks ago. I preached at a place, I preached there sometime when I'm in town, and fill in for a person. But anyway, I preached there, and a lady came out, and she's a fine lady, but she said, you know, I saw an angel. And this angel had wings and all, and white, boy, brilliant white. And you know, I did with her the way that I do with anybody else who mentions seeing a vision, hearing a dream, or seeing a dream, or hearing a still small voice. I go to Job chapter 4. Automatically. When that happened, my Bible just falls up to Job 4. Nearly that way. Now, things are secretly brought to me. Might ever see the whisper thereof? In visions, the thoughts of visions of the night, when deep sleep. Did you think that was a new concept, deep sleep? Falleth upon men, fear came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Carry the hat to that. Then a sinew passed before my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. You ever had that happen? Brother, I've had it happen. It stood still, that spirit. But I couldn't quite pick out what kind of appearance it had there. A form before my eyes. There was silence. And I heard a still, small voice say, shall mortal man be more pure than God? Just shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, if God putteth no trust in his servants, his righteous servants, even his angels he chargeth with folly. How much more those that dwell in houses of clay, men whose foundations in the dust, we come forth from the dust, we'll return to the dust, that is the bodies, who are crushed more easily than the moth. Betwixt evening and morning they have perished, they destroyed, regarding it? Is not their tent cord plucked up within them? You ever had a tent out here and something come loose, on one of your stakes or one of your cords, and the tent fall on you? What happens with man, see, his life is very precarious. They die, and they haven't lived long enough to learn anything without wisdom. Now let me ask you, what kind of spirit did he see? I don't know if he saw it. First of all, I have no proof. Number two, if he did see a spirit, he saw a lying spirit. And you're not going to see a spirit. You just don't see spirits today. That'd be a miracle. God would be approaching you directly and all that, and that doesn't happen today. But there are some people that think they see it. Brother, if you see it, number one, you didn't see it, but even if you had, which you did, but even if you had, that spirit probably lied to you. But you didn't see it. You better watch out and see these spirits. Here's that spirit that told old Eliphaz a falsehood. It said that God doesn't even trust the righteous angels. Now, where do you find that about? Why, he sends the righteous angels and sent them out on missions, man. And he says he doesn't, much less does he trust man. Well, let me tell you something. You know what he did? He placed the great commission into the hands of each one of us. What do you mean he doesn't trust man? And then he goes on and he says, call now. Get into the Holy One's angels in case you say that you're innocent and all that. Vex every foolish man, one man, jealous and slayeth the silly one. I have seen the foolish taking root. Job, you did quite well. But suddenly I cursed his habitation because he was gone. His children are far from safety. Why? Because he went. How safe are your children, Job? Oh, they're dead. Yeah. They are crushed in the gate, that is, in these matters to be adjudicated. They lose. Neither is there any to deliver them, whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and so forth. Now, affliction cometh not forth from the dust. Verse 6, it doesn't just go poof like that and happen for no reason. Neither does trouble spring out of the ground, but man is born in trouble just as sure as the spark flies. If you look over a house and you see smoke and sparks going up, what do you think is causing that? You say, well, there's a fire on the inside of the house. Job, your sufferings. And let me tell you something, it doesn't just come out of thin air. You are a grievous sinner. You brought that upon him. You say. Now, he's a loving soul winner. Now, notice verse 8. He says, I'll tell you what, if I were you, I'd seek unto God. Brother, I'd repent. Unto God that I commit my cause, who doeth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who giveth rain to the earth, and so forth. He taketh the wise in his own craftiness. Verse 13, that's quoted in 1 Corinthians 3:19. Notice verse 17. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. You know what's happening, Job? God is correcting you, man. He's chastising you. God is bringing this upon you to try to get you to turn and repent of your wickedness. Therefore, despise not the chastening of the Almighty. Well, what's Job answer? What does he answer? Verse 6, chapter 6. Then Job answered and said, oh, that my vexation were but weight. You ever see a scale like this? You know, the old scale in the druggies office, you know? And you had the scale on this side and holder on this side, whatever you call it, hand or something. And you'd have a weight over here. He said if you put wet sand, boy, that's heavy, wet sand. Sand to the sea on one side, and you put my troubles on the other side, wouldn't be any contest. My troubles would far outweigh the wet sand of the sea. Let me tell you something, you fellas don't realize it, but I'm going through grievous misery. And let me give a little credit for that. You know, old saying is, don't criticize a man till you walked a mile in his moccasins. Job says you need to know what's happening to me. Verse 3, verse 4. Verse 3, latter part. Therefore, no wonder my words have been rash. Chapter 3. For the errors of the Almighty are within me, and the poison whereof my spirit drinketh. He thinks God is doing it. He thinks God is doing it. Why, you need to realize that God is destroying me. He set me as a target up here. He is shooting his poison arrows in me. Doth the wild ass bray? Verse 5, when he hath grass? No. No reason to bray. No reason to complain. When he hath grass, let me tell you something, if I didn't have any problem, I wouldn't be complaining, brother. But if you see my grievous complaints, you know I've got bad trouble. Or lower the ox over his father, can that which has no savor be eaten without salt? You like egg white without salt? He said it's loathsome food to me, man. I have to put some salt on it. Egg white calls for salt. And great misery calls forth complaining. And I'm not enjoying it. But notice verse 10. Isn't this beautiful? Oh, verse 8. Oh, that I might have my request. Now, what's his request? To die. That the Lord grant me the thing that I long for, even if it please God to crush me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Notice verse 10. This also shall still be my consolation, even though he kills me now, that I have not denied the words of the Holy One. I don't care how much suffering and pain I have, I'm not going to turn my back on God. But I do wonder why he's inflicting such pain upon me. Is my strength the strength of stones? Verse 12. Am I like grass? Can the Lord just crush me and crush me and crush me and think that I won't hurt? Why, sure I hurt. I'm disappointed in you fellas. I saw you and I thought, well, man, isn't this going to help me? To him that is ready to faint, kindness should be shown from his friend. Even to him that forsaketh the fear of the Almighty. You'd be better to atheists than you have been to me. I expected better things out of you. My brethren, my friends have dealt deceitfully as a work, as Chandler Brooks passed away, which by raising eyes, wearing the snow hatched itself, what time they wax warm, they vanish. When it is hot, they're consumed out of the place. Have you ever been out hunting or something and you see a little stream going over the ground here, and then all of a sudden it goes and sinks in the earth? Well, Job says, here's exactly the caravan. Here's a caravan going along, and they've run out of water. And the head of the caravan, the master of the caravan says, hey, there's an oasis over yonder. And so they go out of the way and travel as far as they can, finally get to this oasis. They're family. And what's happening? It's driving. Driving. And so he says, I thought, here comes hell. You know, sometimes when you find it, see a record or something like that on the road, on the front of it says, here comes hell. He saw his friend, he said, Lord, I'm going to get some encouragement. Encouragement, nothing. Encouragement, nothing. Do you think the reproved word seeing the speech of one as desperate as the wind? Verse 26. I realize I'm desperate. I realize I'm speaking out of grief. But I sure expected better things here. I'll tell you how much you love me and appreciate me and want to help me. You, bird, would even cast lots upon the fathers, the orphans. That's how much you love your fellow man. You would make merchandise of your friend. Won't you look me in the eye? Verse 28. And say these things to me. I'm not going to lie to you, face. Look me in the eye and say that. Make those accusations to me. So verse 3, so am I made to bless months of misery. Notice how terrible his misery is. Verse 4, when I lie down, I say, when shall I rise and the night be gone? Have you ever been in the middle of the night and you're just miserable and everything, and you think, boy, if I could see the light of day, I think things would be better. I am full of tossing, full of growing, the dawning of the day. My flesh is clothed with worms, maggots, and clods of dust. My skin closeth up and breaketh out afresh. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle is over all life. They're spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is a breath. He prays to God now. Mine eyes shall see no more good. The eye of him that seeth me shall behold me no more. Why? Because he is about dead. Thine eyes shall be upon me, but I shall not be. He that goeth down to Sheol, the grave, shall come up no more. He that shall return no more to his house. I'm about dead, and I'm not coming back to this place. And Lord, if you're going to help me, you're going to have to do it quickly. Notice that he confessed his sins, and he asked for forgiveness. Notice verse 20, if I have sinned, O Lord, what do I unto thee, O thou watcher of men? What have I done to deserve this? Job maintains the fact, and he's right, that he has not so sinned as to bring this suffering upon him. He realizes that he has not committed the grievous act of sin to cause this suffering. But he asks, Lord, why? What do you have against me? Why hast thou set me as a target for thee, so that I am a burden even to myself? Why dost thou not pardon my transgression? If there's something that I've done back yonder that I'm not aware of, why don't you forgive me? And take away mine iniquity? For now shall I lie down in the dust. Thou shalt seek me diligently, but I shall not be. Bildad the historian, he goes to history, appeals to history. Bildad said, if thou wilt seek diligently unto God, verse 5, and make thy supplication to the Almighty, if thou wert pure and upright, as you claim, surely now he will wait for thee and make the habitation of thy righteousness prosperous. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, appeals to antiquity, history, and apply thyself to that which their fathers have searched out, because we don't live long enough to know anything. We have to go to what people came with in the past. Can the rush grow up without mire, verse 11? Can the flag grow without water? When you see cattails and flags out here, what is there water there? Absolutely. There's a bunch of swampy water there, right? Brother, you are suffering. I'll tell you the reason why. You're being punished because you sin. It doesn't happen accidentally. So are the path, verse 13, of all that forget God, and the hope of the godless man shall perish. And you know, notice verse 20, he says, behold, God will not cast away a perfect man. So, you're a grievous sinner, Job. Well, Job answers, chapter 9. And he says, how can a man be just with God? Verse 2. If he, God, be pleased to contend with me, to let me answer him, and so forth, I could not answer him 1 out of 1,000. Now you're going to notice that in chapter 9, that Job feels that he has no hope. I wish we had time to talk about some of these speeches. Each speech of Job is characterized by beginning low, and then it's encouraging a little bit, and then it gets back low like this. You'll notice that. He begins very low, very discouraged. He receives just a little bit, or has a little bit of encouragement toward the middle, and then he gets back to where he was here. Now, in chapter 9, he's going to say there's no hope. I have no hope. I have no hope. I'm innocent, but I have no hope of defending myself before God. He won't let me come before him, and even if he did, I could not defend myself to him. Who hath hardened himself against God and prospered? Him that removeth the mountains, and they knoweth it not, when he overturneth them in his anger. This talk about the flood, in my opinion. That shaketh the earth out of its place, and the pillars thereof tremble, and so forth. God will not withdraw his anger, verse 13. Whom though I were righteous, verse 15, yet would I not answer. Yet I would make supplication to my judge. If he called and he had answered me, yet would I not believe that he would hearken unto my voice. I couldn't do any good with God because he wouldn't listen to me. For he, God, breaketh me with a storm, and multiplieth my wounds without cause. Whom does he think is doing this? He thinks God is doing it. He will not suffer me to take my breath. He will not suffer me to be without pain long enough to swallow. Notice verse 21. He says, I am perfect. Now what does that mean? That means that Job knows that he is complete in God. He is. He is. God said that. Perfect and upright, fears God and turns away from evil. I regard not myself. I'm not concerned about my life. I'm not concerned about my possessions. I'm not concerned about these other things. Let me tell you something. I am concerned about my relationship with God. It is all one, therefore I say, he destroyeth the perfect and the wicked. I see the wicked out here being destroyed, but I see also the righteous being destroyed. And I am being destroyed, even though I am righteous. But I can't appear before God and defend my case. Notice verse 30. He says, if I wash myself with snow water. He couldn't think of anything more clean than snow water. And make my hand never so clean. And thou, God, plunge me into the pit, and mine own clothes are me. Even though he could clean himself up the best he could, he still couldn't appear before God. Why? Because he is not a man as I am. Here's God, well up here. Here's Job, way down here. A lot of difference between Job and God. A lot of distance between Job and God. He's not a man as I am, that I should answer him, that we should come together in court and judgment. There is no umpire. This word's the word go on in the Hebrew. It's the word which is translated sometimes mediator, daysman in the King James, mediator, umpire, American Standard, betwixt us that might lay his hand upon us both. You know, you think about the hockey strike and the baseball strike, right? And you think about these unions, you think about management, you think about manufacturing labor. And they have a difference between them. What you need is an arbitrator, right? Who can lay his hand upon the shoulder of labor and lay his hand upon the shoulder of management and draw them together. Sometimes you have arbitration, sometimes you have binding arbitration. Job says, I don't have an umpire, a high priest, a daysman, a mediator between me and God who might lay his hand upon us both and reconcile me to God. I don't have any hope. Well, verse 10, chapter 10. He said, Lord, show me why thou contendest with me. Verse 2. Why are you destroying me, Lord? Verse 8, thy hands have framed me and fashioned me about. You've made me what I am. You made me physically, but you also made me spiritually. Remember, I beseech thee, that thou didst fashion me as clay. Wilt thou bring me into dust again? Here's a potter, and he forms a beautiful vase. Beautiful vase. He designs it and all that, beautiful fashion and all, and then he puts it in the kiln, boy, and it is a sight to behold. It's a thing of great. And you admire it. Takes it over here, lays it on the anvil, and he takes his heavy hammer and he smashes it. Does that make sense? Job said, Lord, you formed me, man. Created, molded me in the womb. molded me spiritually. What I am spiritually, how do you? And then now you say, did you tell me why? Hast thou not poured me out to be able to curve me like cheeks? Hast thou not clothed me with skin and flesh, knit me together with bones and sinews? Hast thou not granted me life and loving kindness, and my visitation and preserved me? Yet these things thou didst hide in thy heart. I know that this is with thee. But yet you destroy me. If I sin, and thou markest me, wilt thou not acquit me from mine iniquity? It is very interesting, my friends, that Job is in constant prayer. It is also very interesting that the friends never prayed. Job constantly called upon God. The friends never called upon God. Well, verse 17, thou renewest thy witnesses against me and increasest thine indignation upon me, changing warfare with me. Lord, you won't let me die. Why then hast thou brought me forth out of the womb? Why did you allow me to be born? Verse 18. I have given up the ghost. I wish I could have died and not been born. No eye had seen me. I'll soon be gone. Well, here's so far. He's the meanest one of the three. He's the roughest. He's the dogged. He's bold and he's crude and rude. Should not the multitude of thy words be answered? Should a man full of talk be justified? I'm not going to justify you, brother. Verse 4, thou sayest my doctrine is pure, and I am clean in thine eyes. But oh, that God would speak. I'll tell you what, if God were to speak, I'll tell you what he would tell you. You know what, this thing started. 45 minutes gone already. You know what? Two frogs that were about pond said, time sure is fun when you have to fly. Well, they were close. Time flies when you have fun. I don't know, Brother Price might check to see how far I got before this thing stopped. It didn't cut off. And but anyway, you've been mighty kind, mighty generous to listen so well. Certainly good to be with you. Tomorrow, we didn't get quite as far as I thought we would. Let me tell you something. We'll get to the good part tomorrow. And, all of it's good, but I'll tell you, after tomorrow, I think you'll say the best is last. Thank you very much. Brother Price.